very fast to form commissions of inquiry to investigate issues of national concern. But many of those teams or reports were never made public, and they are rarely consequential. 10 task forces in 3 years, is it a bit too much for President William Ruto?
Thank you, Edimoni. Allow me to salute viewers wherever they are watching this morning show from, and coming to the matters concerned on the reports that were never enforced. It is true that various governments are rushed to make inquiries, but after those inquiries or those commissions, after being commissions and reports were presented, to enforce or to implement those reports becomes a handle. And I would like to cite that this is a pure weakness of the executive, because anything to enforce or to implement is under the powers of the executive. Note that, in fact, even as much as the parliament has a duty to make many recommendations, those recommendations, after exiting from the house, the implementers or the enforcers are the executive. This still goes to judiciary, that even though judiciary make judgments, those judgments, if the court makes a direction, that direction implementer is not the court, but the enforcer or implementer of such decisions made by court is still the executive. But executive sometimes tends to override and put under the lock those kind of reports or orders issued by court and ignore. And I would say this is a big weakness, because there's no need of using public taxpayers' money, and after using that taxpayers' money, then you fail to implement the report. Then it shows no justification to why, in the first place, did you took that direction. You waste public money, and after using that public money, you do not want to implement the report. Either you could say the report has issues, and then if you have issues with the report, then ask for a further investigation if you are not satisfied with the report tabled on you. But you cannot receive reports and put reports under the locker and fail to implement. Even some reports, public does not know what was the report. Yes, it becomes executive property. It is wrong, and I will castigate and say it is wrong to misuse public or taxpayers' money just to report that executive has no business with. And there is no need in the first place to institute such kind of commissions if on the onset you are not ready to implement such a report. But I would say it is a total misbehavior of the executive.
But it does serve a purpose, definitely, Bwana Famba. The fact that probably any administration, and it's not just William Ruto's administration, they found a way of pacifying the masses in case of a crisis of national concern, that whenever many questions are asked, the first thing is to tell them, okay, fine, I formed a team to look into this. And then the masses are pacified and we forget about it and move on. Is this the same route that the President William Ruto is using in forming all these 10 task forces in 3 years?
I want to agree that at some point in the past, task forces have been used for political reasons. But again, as you have just underlined, it is factual that this is not the first regime that is having task forces. By the time we are trying to scrutinize what is happening currently, we need to also look at the past. We cannot just condemn this government as if it's the first one to put up task forces. But again, since President Ruto came into power, the biggest challenge has been the litigious nature of Kenyans. You look at like Dr. Gikenyi, who is my friend, or the surgeon from Nakuru. It's like he has taken over from Omtata and is always in court, petitioning the court to challenge any government decision And that has given a lot of bottlenecks in terms of executing certain government priorities. And task forces are not exceptional. I want to believe that the 3 years that the president has been in power is such a short time compared to the 60 years that were under the other leaderships previously. But I'm seeing a situation whereby there's very strong high judgment against the current regime as opposed to the 60 years.
10 task forces in 3 years.
In context of what we are discussing, every task force has its own role. So you cannot necessarily say that there are 10, there are 20, there are what. Every task force is put there on need basis. For example, if you look at the Macau Mutua one, it is something that the Kenyans are experiencing for the first time. There are so many people who have been killed under extrajudicial circumstances, and they have not been mentioned in terms of compensation. Like in 2009, on 5th of March, a friend of mine called GPO, who was a student leader at the University of Nairobi, was assassinated alongside Oscar Kingara and another student. But that never got any kind of attention from the state. So for me, I think we should be applauding the president for coming up with these decisions that are helping to address some of the issues that have never been addressed by previous regimes.
Okay. Wakili Harrison Kinyanjui, karibu sana.
Thank you very
this
much.
Conversation, and we're just looking at the 3 years of President William Ruto. Now, the angle that the Daily Nation has chosen to go with is a number of task forces that have been formed to investigate or look into a number of issues that have come up of national concern. Some of them, and I'll read them in Swahili because they're there on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Jopo la elimu ya msingi, that's a task force on education reforms. Jopo la mageuzi katika huduma ya polisi, that's a CJ Maraga-led police reforms task force. Jopo kazi la mazungumzo ya kitaifa maarufu kama NADCO, kuchunguza mwongozo wa kisheria wa kimamlaka na makundi ya kidini, religious organizations. Jopo kazi la kuchunguza deni la umma, debt being a very big discussion in Kenya. Jopo kazi la kukabiliana na ufisadi, that's the one formed, bringing together all these organizations only last month, and the latest one on the compensation of victims of police abductions and killings. Now, all these spend money, yet we rarely get to see any consequence coming from the report generated by these teams, and one wonders, what is the use of such bodies or such teams that end up spending, like for example, NADCO spent about 106 million shillings. Yet we forgot about it. Now we are going with the MOU for the broad-based arrangement. Do you see the need for these task forces, or are they simply routes to pacify the masses and we move on?
Thank you very much. Good morning to my panelists, friends. It's terrible. This is a deflection from the inefficiencies that accosted him when he suddenly realized my end game was to be in power, and now I am accosted by a failed economy coming from the COVID-19 scenario. And instead of him saying that, look, we have a crisis, we have just come from this internationally orchestrated economic scenario called COVID-19. Pandemic, as they called it. And we therefore need to align our policies and everything else to come out of that economic doldrum. Did he? He came into power and started to flex his political muscle. 3 years down the line, what do we see? Him getting on top of rooftop of cars, campaigning and all of that. Do you need a task force to tell you that there is a problem in the education sector? We do not have, for instance, under Section 68 of the Basic Education Act, the quality analysis force. That committee is not there. So what do we have? A fall in quality education. But we do have the mechanism in law. As Meshimo has said, yes, you can have the decision of a court made and decided, but in the end, it is executive to implement that decision. These task forces that he makes, you wonder who is his legal advisor. His legal advisor is supposed to be under Article 157 of the Constitution, the Honorable the Attorney General. The Honorable the Attorney General is either sleeping on her job or his job, as it were, or the president has been thoroughly and absolutely ignoring any and all advice. And I take the latter view with tremendous respect. Why do I say that? If you see what the Constitution provides for in terms of the powers, the scope, and the role of the NPSC, the National Police Service Commission, could ever the Chief Justice Emeritus, Honorable Maraga, then sit on that task force as he did? The High Court, the Constitutional Court, eventually say that, look, you didn't have that mandate. It is unconstitutional for you to have undertaken and executed that. That's money down the drain. Then you ask yourself, okay, the Public Service Commission has all this data about the experts that are hired by the government, either on consultancy basis or within the departments of government themselves. Can't they fall back on that reservoir of intelligence or expertise that we have? Is that a prudent use of our public resources, that you have a task force to investigate the Shakahola incident and so on and so forth? Those are crimes. Where was the DCI to begin with? Where were the police to begin with? We do not need a task force. For instance, then he comes and creates this task force for the compensation of victims of crime. And we all know that he's saying, and told the policeman, you remove your gun and shoot that person in the foot if you do find them. Come on, he is a perpetrator of crime himself. And then he sets up this task force. What am I saying? He's setting up these task forces to hoodwink the Kenyan people and to deflect from his inefficiencies. And also to try and justify that the government is doing something, quote unquote, something about the scenario. Take, for instance, this task force that he set up to look into the exodus of corporations and companies from this country. Why are they divesting? They are divesting because of the harsh economic environment. The climate that he has created, his government has created, is so anti-economic progress. You cannot invest in this sort of environment and hope to sustain your business. And then he sets up a task force. At the end of it all, does he change the policies? You find the Finance Act and every other policy that he has engaged in is to decimate business. The average person would rather even close or trim down, downsize their economic enterprises rather than invest. Isn't that a pointer that he should have? Lastly, does he need a task force to see, to know that those policies he has engaged himself are in fact the resultant of what is happening? Does his son need to get into the PSV business? Is that where we should be? And remarkably, his own government tells us, oh, you should get into the electric vehicles. His son does not invest in the EV buses himself. So we see these dysfunctional policies that he has and he's imposing on the Kenyan people. And when it comes to the practical implementation, he is so far removed from it.
Okay. And probably before I give Bwana Gakuya an opportunity for that, so that you respond to that, Bwana Famba, then it defeats that comparison that we had between previous presidents and him, that previous presidents may have found it necessary to form such teams because of the constitutional dispensation back then, President Moi Kibaki. But right now, this constitution provides for other bodies, independent institutions, that would be doing the same work. For example, the task force on corruption. It's simply bringing together the same teams that are supposed to be fighting corruption. Don't you think that this is a repetition of duties?
First, I think Wakili has taken a political trajectory. She's mentioning about the president going up to the family members, talking about the son's business.
No. What I was saying, it's not political. It's not political. I'm saying.
And now back to the task force. Let me answer.
Allow me to clarify that, because you see, if you bring a policy and you tell us the policy that the government should be taking, and we saw him driving this EV vehicle and saying that it is time now we shifted from the so-called fossil fuels and we came to electric vehicles. We should see the exempling.
Right.
That's what I was saying, and I'm not getting personal.
Now let me get back to the response. You see, if you want to address a problem, you have to get to the bottom of it. And there are specific situations whereby there is a need for presidential intervention. And those circumstances are the ones that have dictated the formation of these task forces. For example, you saw the NADCO team was established after the Azimio versus Kenya Kwanza crisis. And as a country, because we love politics so much, we are moving from one crisis to the next. And you cannot just sit there and wait for things to happen by themselves. You work in such a manner that you are supposed to address anything that emerges. Not necessarily in a rigid manner, that the law is provided this way so that you live strictly without necessarily thinking outside the box. You must live within the context of the law, but also live within the practicability of the situation. And that's what the president has been doing. Because apart from holding the position, you are entrusted with the right skills to manage the country towards the right direction.
Even when it comes to duplication of roles, because some of these task forces are simply repeating what other bodies
in my opinion, is working in a collaborative manner. You know, every institution has its own strengths. So by the time you are trying to put together different institutions, you are trying to empower the task force so that they produce the best results on the basis of information from different quarters of the society.
All right.
That's the same way you'll appoint different people from different professions to handle a task force so that they put their expertise in practice and in the final report.
But probably this is why we're experiencing a lot of legal hurdles towards these task forces, that there simply is a lot of duplication of roles. The task forces are being given jobs whose basis or whose primary focus should be coming from different organizations that are provided for in the Constitution. Do you think that this is the best way that we could use our money?
Idemoli, system is always a system because it works. But if it does not work, it's a failed system. How can you commission a task force where already you have a commission existing and which is a commission anchored in the Constitution? That is duplicating its job. Otherwise, you should disband that commission first before you put another task force, because it tells that whatever that commission is doing, it is not fulfilling. And if it's not fulfilling, then address how to terminate that commission so that then you can move out and bring in task forces. Otherwise, that is taxpayers' money gone to waste in terms of duplication, because that commission is paid for. This task force will be paid for, and that is a pure duplication. And what I would just to say is that what the executives most of the time want to do is to hoodwink, because they mess the country knowingly, but they just want to hide their face. And therefore, they create task forces just to confuse people, just to create to bring a perception that actually they are taking care or they are taking mercy to whatever has transpired. How? And I want to cite that case of extrajudicial killing. The president is in the record telling Kenyans that he is aware those men and women who has been abducted has already gone back to their families. That tells you he is aware where they were and how they were arrested. Therefore, it tells you even those who are executed, he is aware. And if you are aware as a president, then you want to come to tell us that you form a commission on how to compensate. How do you, that is making people foolish. And that is trying just to clear your face, where you are the cause and source of the problem.
Right.
How can you be in the record telling people, your minister telling people that shoot anybody who comes near the police station? And then you wake up as a president, tell Kenyans, shoot anybody who is in protest or who is on a particular angle, shoot in the leg. And then you want to compensate after shooting.
Fred, I have a very disturbing issue. I have a very disturbing issue. Now, when you look at some of those commissions, 3 of which have been declared unconstitutional, the Maraga one, the one for the Health Act, and this latter one that has been declared unconstitutional. The question that I ask myself is, where is the cut-off point of accountability? Because if you have apportioned all this money and the commission or the task force has been declared unconstitutional by the court, do they refund the money? Those reports are now redundant, useless pieces of verdicts. Where are we as a people? Because at the end of it all, which is why I was asking in the first place, where is the Honorable Attorney General to say to the President, excuse me, before you embark on this enterprise, misadventure, I should say, This is wholly unconstitutional. This is illegal. You will be now sinking into an arena where you're going to drown. Please don't go there. And then he goes there, and then we, the taxpayers, suffer this expense. The question is now, what I am asking myself is, this money that has been expended on these task forces, and they are declared unconstitutional, by means of which then you cannot rely on their reports, but we are being told, oh, the Malaga report is being implemented. That is a thorn in the flesh in our nation.
Gazeti la Taifa Leo nasema ni majopo ya kutafuna. The number of task forces created by President William Ruto, 10 of them since he came into office on 13th of September 2022. We continue looking at Ruto at three years of President William Ruto. He was sworn in on the 13th of September 2022 and will be marking exactly 3 years this Saturday. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll focus more on one of the latest task forces. That's the one intended to compensate victims of abductions and police brutality, and the kind of legal issues that it has experienced. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey kids and families, get ready for the most fun-packed show around, Kids on the Block. Join us for awesome music, magical storytime adventures, and super cool arts and crafts. Plus, we pop tasty treats in our cooking corner. Learn, laugh, and create with us. Kids on the Block, where every day is a brand new adventure. Don't miss it.
Rise and shine